What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. And in this video, I'm going to do something that I normally do when I finish covering a format. I'm actually going to go over the degenerate decks in Warrior format. I normally end formats with this because I don't like to focus on it in the middle. But I do think that, Warrior format's so cool, I don't want to end it on that sort of note. So I figured I'd cover this stuff now. Now, there are a couple very degenerate decks that you can play in Warrior format, the first of them being Science FTK. Now, this is going to probably be the biggest concern for people who jump into the format and see that Scientist is legal. Can you pull off the Science FTK? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes, you can indeed pull off the Science FTK. However, I do think that the deck is not quite consistent enough to actually see success in tournament settings. There was someone on Science FTK in the last tournament that we held in Warrior format, and they did not win. They did not even do very good. I think they went 0-2. So, the deck can win, but it's not going to necessarily be the best thing to bring to a tournament. Also, the fact that people know what people are on in a tournament, generally after the first round, means that, if you are playing this deck, your opponent will likely call the right things off of reasoning, which is a very important card for your combo. So, this deck does have a bit of a tough time winning. Also, if it does go second, then your opponent likely has disruption to sort of stop you from making your plays. So, it's good to know those flaws of the deck. But the deck can win. I'm not going to act like it never ever wins. It does win occasionally, and this is something that is in the format. It's kind of like Library FTK and GOAT. It can win. It can be scary when it does win and frustrating when it does win, but it's not going to be the best deck in the room. But let's go through the card by card. I think there are many different ways that you can build Science FTK. I've settled on this way after testing a couple different ways. You could go for a field spell package, to bring out Catapult Turtle off of like Legendary Ocean or something. I found that to be really bricky. I didn't want to play it. You could also play something like Cannon Soldier, just to have a way to trigger your Last Wills. But I found that, in order for that to be worth it, you had to add 2 Last Wills in hand. And if you had 2 Last Wills in hand anyways, you were probably going to have a variety of ways to win. So I didn't really feel the need to play Cannon Soldier, especially because if you hit it off of something like Monster Gate or Reasoning, then it almost always ends your turn unless you have exactly 2 Last Wills in hand. So I felt like, I didn't really want to play it because oftentimes you were, it feels weird to call it bricking because you've resolved Monster Gate or Reasoning, but oftentimes you just hit it and your turn ends and then you can't do your combo anymore. So I didn't like that. So I cut it from the deck. You could definitely play it if you want to. But this isn't like in GOAT format where you have Toon Table contents acting Toon Cannon Soldier. So just the one Cannon Soldier is not really that good. But, let's go through the rest of the card by card here. This is pretty much standard Science FTK. Basically, the goal is to get a Magical Scientist and a Catapult Turtle on your side of the field. Catapult Turtle is not once per turn in this format, so you can contribute off as many monsters as you want to during your turn. So basically the idea is if you can get Scientist and Catapult Turtle on your side of the field and you have at least 7,000 life points, actually you need a little bit more than 7,000 life points, then you can actually kill your opponent just by bringing out fusion monsters like Darkblade the Dragon Knight. A very scary combo if you can pull it off, but of course in this format there aren't as many ways to special summon, so it's a bit less consistent. The main ways you have to special summon are Last Will, Monster Gate, and Reasoning. You also do have Serial Spell to duplicate one of these many spells. If you Serial Spell for Last Will and you have a way to tribute a monster, then that's obviously very good. So that's the main thing that you want to use Serial Spell on. But I've also found that you can use Serial Spell on Monster Gate in a pinch. You can use it on Pot of Greed in a pinch. So there are a variety of things that you can use Serial Spell with. For the rest of the card by card, you've got ways to sort of draw into this, like card destruction. You've got ways to trigger Last Will, like Metamorphosis or Mystic Walk. Mystic Walk's actually really good because you can use it on a Scientist Fusion summon to sort of gain back 2,000 at least. And then you'll have enough life points to pay for 2 more Scientist Fusion summons, and also you'll have a Last Will trigger. Now, Last Will also, it's important to note, Last Will has to be activated before a monster sent from field to grave. This does limit your combos a little bit. But it's generally something that you can work around. We've got Painful Choice here as well to set up our combo even more, especially given that we've got things like Monster Reincarnation and Spell Reproduction, both of which are also great at getting spells or monsters from grave that have been sent there off something like Monster Gate or Reasoning. Well, not really Monster Gate for monsters because, Monster Gate will summon out. But, you know, occasionally off reading, you'll hit a monster, and that'll wind up in grave, so you want monster reincarnation and back. We've also got a reload here to reset our hand, and an Upstart Goblin to draw deeper into our deck. Upstart's a bit awkward in this deck, because it does mean that you'll have to pay more, or at least have some other way to get more monsters on field, for your turtle to kill. But this deck does have a variety of ways to do that. Metamorphosis, I mean, it doesn't quite do it, but it does trigger Last Will for free. So, you know, that's something that occasionally can help you get those, you know, extra monsters on board. We have Mystic Walk here, which can also, you know, as I said, get back more life points for Scientist. And also Gillosaurus in a pinch. If you need more damage, you can special summon this out. Unfortunately, Gillosaurus plus 6 Scientist fusions and Scientist and Turtle is 50 off of lethal. So that's kind of unfortunate with this card, but, you know, oftentimes you can use things like Reincarnation to bring it back and just get extra damage through that. And lastly, we got Demock as well. If you manage to hit Demock off something like Gate or Reasoning, then that's also very good, get you a spell, and oftentimes can get you that extra damage as well. For the side deck, we've got a full conversion side into just a more typical Reasoning Gate Turbo deck. So, you know, it's playing BLS, triple Chaos Sork, along with triple Dimension Fusion, and we're, you know, keeping the monster reincarnations in. We get Goats as well to serve as tribute fodder for our gates, and also triple Crane and a Jinzo, as well as a Change of Heart. So, you know, if you're doing the full conversion side, I think that generally the good things to take out are triple monster, or not triple monster reincarnation, triple spell reproduction, triple serial spell, triple walk. So that's 9 cards already. Triple Catapult Turtle, triple Gillosaurus, and that will be the 15. There are some awkward things with doing that. For instance, your last bill only has Scientist as a target. But Scientist is very powerful, and if you don't hit it, you kind of want to bring it out. So last bill isn't the worst thing in the world to keep in. And, you know, for the rest of the things, like reload's kind of awkward, but you can always reload like Bricky Hands with the Reasoning Turbo deck, which does occasionally brick. So, you know, I don't think that the rest of the cards we're keeping in are that bad. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Of course, the Fusion deck is unlimited in this format, so you can play whatever you want in it. Right now, it just has like Dark Blue Dragon Knights and Dark Flare Knights, as well as just the typical toolboxy cards like, you know, Dark Ball with the Terrible, Fiend Skull Dragon, Ryu Senshi, and Thousand Hundred Trick. You can check my other videos for just other Fusion monsters that you might want to include in this deck. But generally, that should be good enough for you. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. As I said, let's dive into a game and actually see how it plays. Okay, first replay we got is against Dump Truck, freaking guests on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We are going to actually win the rock, paper, scissors, so we do go first, which is what this deck wants to do. Because occasionally you just win the game. So let's see what we do here. We've got a pretty great hand. I think we should be able to actually pull this off, especially with Painful Choice and Spell Reproduction. That gives us a lot of options here. So we think a bit about this because it does take a bit to assemble the line, but eventually we do find it. We're going to send double Catapult Turtle, Premature Burial, a Monster Reincarnation, and a Monster Reincarnation. Now, the reason we do this is if they give us a Catapult Turtle, what we can do, we can spell Reproduction, pitch a Reasoning and a Serial spell to get back the Premature, and then Premature back a Turtle. Then we can, you know, set Last Will, or just activate Last Will, I guess, and activate Serial Spell and chain to it, pitching the Catapult Turtle we have in hand to get, you know, a double Last Will activation, basically. And then we can tribute off the turtle that we have on field to bring out a third turtle from the deck and a Scientist. So that will do it there. If they give us the pre-mat, our, you know, task is a lot simpler. We just pre-mat back the turtle, go for Last Will plus Serial Spell, and win the game that way. And if they give us Reincarnation, it's a bit more awkward. If they give us Reincarnation, we have to do something like pitch a Serial Spell to add back... Or no, wait, no, we don't even need to do that. We can just do the thing we did, Spell Repro, to get back pre-mat, pitching the Reincarnation and the Reasoning, and, you know, we pre-mat back a turtle, and then we go for Serial Spell and Will. So the key thing here is the pre-mat, the turtle, and the turtle. So the reading doesn't really matter there. But they're going to give us the turtle. I think that is correct because, you know, turtle's a lot harder to summon out from hand. So, you know, and also it's not a spell to pair with spell reproduction. But either way, as I mentioned, this should be the end of the game. We're going to add back that Premature Burial. We actually have a couple different ways to do this here. Or actually, no, we don't, because we can't just tribute out the turtle because we still need a card in hand to discard off Serial Spell. Or no, wait, no, yeah, we can just do it this way because we got a turtle on field. So yeah, this also does it. So yeah, either way, we had game there through a variety of means. But yeah, we just go for scientists there, pay 7,000, and that will be the end of the game. So game one went quick. We did pull off the FTK. But that will happen in this deck. Now, in testing, I found that the FTK is like not the most consistent thing in the world. It does happen a fair amount of the time, and we will do test hands after this replay. But overall, it's not the scariest thing in the world. It does happen, though. And you actually will see it happen multiple times over the course of these replays. So our opponent's going to go for Thunder Dragon here, pitch 2. They're going to go for Comfy plus Forceful to send back 2 cards. That is disastrous for us. They're going to send a Scapegoat to Grave and then send back our Change of Heart to deck. So that's really rough. We kind of wanted those cards, especially given our hand is a bit bricky. Yeah, we draw into a BLS, and that's really unfortunate. We're just drawing our bricks, and we've lost our Scapegoat, so we don't have a way to protect ourselves here. Opponent's going to go for a Dekoichi, draw 1, attack in for 14. And we draw into meta, which will not help us here. If we had the Scapegoat, it could have helped because, we could have meted a goat token and gone for 1,000 eyes. But unfortunately, that will not happen here. They're going to attack in for 14. And, they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Demok, which, again, will not help. We're going to pass back to them. They're going to attack in for 14. And we'll take that again. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Chaos Orc. We draw all our monsters here. That's kind of wild since we're playing very few monsters. But yeah, and if our opponent hadn't handed us at the start, we actually would have had plays here, surprisingly, because we could have gone for meta on a goat token, gone for Jinzo over that token, or over that restrict, and attacked in. But, that's not how it worked out. And that also would have been kind of a fragile game state, too, because our opponent could easily clear the Jinzo and have things to do against us. So yeah, kind of unfortunate here. They flip up Spy, so they get in for 3,800 damage exactly here, and that will be the end of the game. So unfortunately, we couldn't really do anything that game. That's why reload is important to keep in, because, you can reload back your monsters and stuff. But very rare hand from that Reason Gate Turbo deck there, but it does happen occasionally, so that is good to know about. Even if, you don't win your game 1, well, if you don't win your game 1, you're keeping it on the FTK. But if you do win one of these games with the FTK, and you go into Reason Gate Turbo, that deck also has a fair amount of variance. So it's good to know about it. It has a bit less variance than the Science FTK deck, in my opinion, because even though you're not FTKing, you likely are going to wind up in a position that's a bit more stable. But it does happen. So we side back into the FTK for game 3 because we are going first, so why wouldn't we side back into the FTK? We've got a very interesting hand here. We draw Last Will plus Serial Spell, so that's a neat combo, but we also draw Card Destruction, which we kind of need to use to dig deeper in our deck here. We don't necessarily want to go for Upstart and give our opponent 1,000 when we don't have a clear way to get an extra monster on board. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to set the Will, go for Card Destruction here, pitch 4. And let's see if we actually draw into what we need here. Sometimes you just got to go for the Desperation Card Destruction. We draw Pre-Mat, which is really good to bring back that, the Demok if we want to, but we just have game here with Scientist and Walk. So we're going to bring out the Scientist, pay 1,000, bring out a Punished Eagle. Doesn't really matter here. We're going to go for Will, go for a Mystic Walk on the Eagle, and bring out a Turtle. And that should be the end of the game here. We get 9,100 life points, so we can pay 9 times for the Scientist. So this is well over lethal damage. So that's going to be the end of the game. And as I said, the deck can occasionally win. But, this wasn't the only game that I played with the deck. So let's dive into another one now. Okay, we got another game here against Soul65. If you can get to the channel as well, always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the Rock, Paper, Scissors, and we lose the Rock, Paper, Scissors. I try to do big brain, just rock it every time, but unfortunately it didn't quite work. So our opponent will go first. And that's very unfortunate for us because we're on Science FTK. So if they've got any disruption, then we are in for a tough time. They go for Reasoning, though, here. I call 8 just because, if they hit Demok, that's bad for us. They hit the Crane, though, so they will be able to draw a card here. And they're going to think about this a bit. They go for Monster Gate here. They tribute off the Crane for a Kaiser Glider. Now, knowing what Soul played in the last Warrior Tournament, this is very likely the Fusion Gate Turbo deck that I talked about in the Warrior Tournament breakdown here, which is a very cool deck. One thing that this deck is not playing is Disruption. So I think we should be pretty fine here. They are playing like a little bit of Disruption, like they've got Ring of Destruction, and I think Call of the Haunted, but Call of the Haunted won't do anything against us, so it's really just Ring of Destruction that we care about. So actually, this is probably the best matchup for the Science FTK deck. So, keep that in mind. If our opponent had any interaction here, this game probably would have gone a bit differently. But we go for reasoning here. They call 8, and we manage to hit the turtle. They also don't know what we're on, so I think 8 makes sense for the call. But if people know you're on Science FTK, they're probably going to call 5, in which case we would not have this monster on field to go for things like gate. So it's good to keep that in mind. We will set the gate, set a reload, because we want to sort of bait out like MST or something. If we go for pot of greed plus serial spell, because we want them to figure that like we've probably got like powerful spells here that we don't want to discard off spell. So we might as well set to serve as bait. We're gonna lose that reload anyways to our spell, so it doesn't really matter here. But we're gonna go for pot. They're gonna think, but that's fine. We go for serial spell to pitch the last card in our hand and then draw 4 off that pot of greed. And this is a pretty decent hand. I think we actually might have a way to get to lethal here. If we look at what's in our grave, we can potentially spell repro back the gate or the will, and then go for that. So that might be the move. We have to think about this a bit. We go for spell repro indeed, and we do get back that will. That's going to be fine by them. So we're just going to go for that will. We're going to go for the gate. What we could have done here instead of we could have gone for will, tributed off turtle with its own effect, and then brought out scientist out a fusion card, and then gone for gate. But effectively, that didn't really change anything. And we hit scientist anyways, so that's kind of funny. So we get out the turtle, and that'll just be the end of the game. So, yeah. We had there were 3 monsters in our deck that did it, the turtles and the scientists, but there are also 3 monsters in our deck that didn't do it, the 3 Gillosauruses. So that was kind of like 50-50 chances there. But we did manage to win the 50-50 and pull off the end of the game. So our opponent's going to admit defeat, and we're feeling very happy about that. We sided into the full conversion side in game 2 here, going for the full Reason Gate Turbo deck. So now it's Reason Gate Turbo against Reason Gate Turbo, and we'll see if we manage to pull off a win here. Opponent's going to think they're going to go for Painful Choice, and they're going to send 5 okay ones. I'm not really the most threatened by any of those. They do have a Light and Dark Engrave, which is kind of annoying, but we've got like Change of Heart plus Gate in case they do like preemptively bring out BLS or something. So we're just going to give them the Kaiser Glider because Glider does the least in hand. And if they bring out Jinzo, I'm honestly fine with that because it shuts down their own traps. So we kind of want that to happen. Opponent's going to bring out Skilled White Magician and then go for a gate here. And they're going to hit a ring, so that's pretty good. We know that we don't have to worry about that for the rest of the game. And they hit a Buster Blader ultimately, 2600 attack. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Chaos Orc here. And we can actually get a couple different options here. We can Change of Heart the Blader and then go for gate on that. Or we can just go for Scientist here and then bring out Restrict and suck up the Blader and then gate away that. So that's what we're going to do instead. Because I was like calculating it out, I didn't really see many like good lethal lines with the Blader, with like taking control of that, especially if they're on like Scapegoat. It's kind of a bit risky to give them back the Blader at the end of the turn. So we go for gate here and we hit a Crane, which is pretty good. So we'll be able to draw a card off that. And our opponent's going to think about this, and they are just going to let that go through. We draw Will, which is unfortunate because Will does not have any targets now that Science is out of deck, which I mentioned earlier. But it can happen, unfortunately. And we're going to think about exactly what to do here. Because now we've got a bit of a choice to make. We could just go for gate on the Crane and then get a Light and Dark Engrave and then go for like Chaos Orc. Or we could just bring out a Fusion Monster off Scientist and gate that away. So that is ultimately what we're going to do. We're just going to like proxy in an Ojama King because we want the Light Engrave for our Sork, and this will get it engraved. We don't have Ojama King in the Fusion deck, but it is legal for this format. So even if it wasn't, we could have proxied in like Guilty or something. So, but I like Ojama King a little bit better here. I mean, it doesn't really matter either way, but it is what it is. So we draw a card off Crane here. We draw into reload, so we could reload away our hand here and extend even further. We're going to bring out a Chaos Orc, and they're going to think about exactly what to do here. And they're just going to let that go through. We're going to set the Change of Heart because that's a pretty good card here. And then we're going to go for reload because Scapegoat and Last Will are both kind of useless to us at this point. We draw into Last Will plus Painful Choice. We could go for Painful here. I'm not necessarily sure what I'd send off Painful to win the game. I mean, we've got 5,800 damage off on board, so all we need is 2,200 more. Either way I could pull that off. Maybe another Chaos Monster, but like they've been thinking, and that could just mean they've got a TT to extend even further. So if they do have TT, then I don't necessarily want to play into that, and I feel like this is a threatening enough board. We can then use Painful as sort of a way to, get exactly what we need if they do manage to break this board. So I figure it's better to save the Painful here rather than to get greedy extending. Our opponent's going to think about this, and they are going to ultimately go for True Nade here, shuffling back everything on field, which makes me a bit scared because there are some things they could do to win the game from this position. If they bring out BLS, hit over Scientist, and hit over a Crane, then that's 2,700 plus 1,400. So that's already like 4,100 points of damage. And then they just need like one more thing that can deal 1,900, and that'll end the game there. So, you know, they already going to bring out the BLS, and they're going to attack over the Scientist here. Attack over the Chaos Sork, which makes sense because Sork can actually clear BLS. And then they're going to think about exactly what to do here. And they're just going to set one and pass back to us. And this should just be the end of the game with the change of heart here. We go for change on the BLS. Yeah, and they revealed they just had a TT. So I'm very glad we didn't sort of try and extend further the last round with the painful. Because of the TT, I think we were pretty safe there, and indeed we were. So that's going to be the end of this game. So we did actually manage to win 2 matches with the Science FTK, which is kind of scary. But we're going to dive into test hands real soon, just do 10 test hands of this deck. And hopefully you'll see that the deck is actually not too bad. Okay, folks, it's everyone's favorite part of the video where I do 10 test hands of these FTK decks. If you want to see the next deck that I'm going to be featuring in the video, then you can look in the timestamps below and just jump to that. But for those of you who do want to see 10 test hands of Science FTK just to see it function a bit more, then this is the part of the video for you. So let's draw for turn here. And this hand is awful. This hand's... Ow, man, this hand's really bad. I'm just going to set a will. I could also set gate here, but like I feel like setting gate is... I'd rather just get more draws. We've got multiple ways to trigger will, so I'd rather just get more draws here. So I'm going to go for reload. Put 4 on top of the deck here, and if Dueling Book will cooperate, looks like we're seeing a bit of lag, but there we go. So we put 4 on top, so now we'll draw 4 here, and those are bad ones. Those are really bad. Wow, that's, I mean, we could Spell Repro, pitch, Spell Repro, meta for reload, and then reload this back to the next. So I'll just do that. I don't think it's going to make a difference here, but we'll see. So we drop, and we draw into a turtle. Yay! So that's going to be an L for this deck. So I'm going to record whether we win or lose in the chat here, just to keep a tally of it. And then at the end of this section, I'll go through and see how we did. This hand is a bit better. I could go for pot first, but I think I'm going to go for reasoning first. Just because I like doing this, because then we know what's engraved, so we can sort of structure our plays a little bit better. So we're going to go for reasoning first, and we are going to mail. We get a Gila. Now, generally when I do reasonings in solo testing, I basically, you know, consider the case where they called it right and consider the case where they called it wrong. So right now we're going to have like Schrodinger's Gila here. We'll just banish it to represent that. So this card could either be on the field or engraved, depending on, you know, what we're thinking. And ideally, if you can still pull off the FTK while, you know, these monsters that you'd call off reasoning would hit the grave, then that is a very good sign. If not, it's kind of like, you know, an iffy win. But we're going to go for reasoning again, and we are going to hit. Let's see what we hit here. We hit turtle, not spell. So, you know, this is a bit more of an impactful instance of like, is this card on field, or is this card engraved? But either way, I think it's good to sort of note that they're there. Right now, we don't have anything to do with cards on field here, really. So, you know, either way shouldn't matter now. We're going to go for pot, see what we draw. And we don't draw anything good. That is unfortunate. We're going to special this Gila and attack. And, I mean, if we have turtle on field, then we just use that. If we don't, then we could tribute off the Gila for a turtle, just to have it here. And then I think what we have to do actually is go for Upstart Goblin and then go for Serial Spell. This is very important because it gives our opponent 2,000 life points. But as is, we don't really have anything else to do. We draw into a Will, which is good. So the awkward thing here is that even if both these cards were on the field, like if we said, okay, we've got both these cards here, I don't think this is quite the end of the game, because what we do is we go for Will, we tribute off like a turtle. So right now we've dealt 500 damage to our opponent. But they're at 9,500, and we'd get out a Scientist here. We're only at 8,000, so we'd only be able to bring out, you know, 7 monsters off this. That's 6 times 2,200 for Darkblade the Ragnite and Dark Flare Knight, which is 6,600, and then plus 1050 for a 2,100 that we'd put in there. So that is 66 plus, so that's 7,650 so far. We tribute off Gila for an additional 700, so that's 8,350. But then we've only got, 150 more off that, so that's 8,500, and then 9,000 exactly. So not quite 10,000 there. We don't, or not quite 9,500. Our opponent lives with 500 life points left. We don't have anything to pitch off Re-Ink to bring back Gila to deal out remaining 5. So that will be another L here. Even if we managed to get lucky and hit both off Reasoning, we still would have lost that game. So that's sort of what I mean by like doing Schrodinger's reasoning hits, where like you want to consider all the different cases there. But this hand is actually pretty good, I think. I got to think about whether we can actually craft the FTK from this, because Painful really does open a lot of avenues here. We can also spell repro back something too, so like it's very good in that way. What if we send triple will double Gila? Does that do anything here? The awkward, well, we might have to send double will Re-Ink. Okay, so we send, no, it's kind of awkward here because we need will to be online, right? But we also need a monster in hand to tribute off Turtle to make that online. So like, if we get back Gila, like we need to get back Gila somehow, but we can't get back both Re-Ink and will with the current hand we have. So it's just kind of awkward here. I don't think we have a way to win. If we send like Premat Scientists, can we do stuff with that? If we send Premat Scientists, Gila, right? Then if they give us a Gila, then we bring out Turtle, we repro back the Premat, and then we win that way. If they give us Scientist, though, doesn't quite do it. So we might have to add Catapulture. If we add back Catapulture, we can't quite do it either. Bit tricky. We could send Premat, Scientist, Re-Ink, Gila. Does this do it? I think this might do it. So if they give us a Gila here, we repro back the Premat, we tribute over the Gila, and then we bring back Scientist, right? If they give us back the Premat, then we just win the game. We bring back the Scientist, we can repro back the Reincarnation to get back the Gila, and then bring out Turtle. And if they give us the Re-Ink, then we just repro back the Premat and Re-Ink back a Gila and go for that. So yeah, so we do win the game no matter what. We send there, like, let's just say they give us the, I don't know, the Gila, just to show you what I mean. They give us the Gila. We special like that, and then we go for this. So yeah, that should be the end of the game here. Yeah, so yeah, that is indeed a W for the deck. I mean, Painful just opens up so many lines for you. It is absolutely wild in this deck. And whenever you open it, you generally should probably win. It just can take a bit of time to figure out what the line is to win. So that was a W there. Sorry, it took a bit to figure out what the Painful, but I mean, speak of the devil, this is a really good, oh my goodness, wow. Drawing the Scientist is a little bit awkward, not gonna lie. Okay, can we win the game from this? Probably. If I go Painful here, I just send, like, I don't know, Turtle. We got a lot of options here because Reload can shovel back the Scientist, so, like, this is generally probably going to be the end of the game. I don't even think I need to do this because I could just special summon out. I'm not even going to do this because it's too much effort, and we win the game just by going, I mean, it's too much effort figuring out the exact line there. What we're going to do is we're just going to special out Gila, go for Will, go for Gate, and no matter what we hit, we can get out a Turtle off this. We hit a Demock anyways, so, we're just swimming in the good hits here. And we're just going to bring out a Turtle, and then we're going to bring out the Scientist, and that's the end of the game. So that's going to be a W here. We didn't need to even use the Painful, even though we drew it. But if we hadn't drawn the rest of the hand there, we probably would have been able to Painful our way out of it. We draw Scientist again, which is, always kind of unfortunate. But this hand does not do it at all. This hand is awful. Wow. Yeah, that's an L. That is a big, fat L. Nothing we can do in that hand there. So sometimes you just draw hands that are L's, and the awkward thing about those hands is that you basically got no follow-up for later turns. Your opponent can just easily kill you. This hand here is pretty okay. Well, it's not quite. We need to set the will, go for reload here. Again, just like before, I don't really want to set the gate because I feel like going for gate 2 is like, you've got 4 monsters in your deck that can trigger gate, so like it's not the most likely thing in the world to get. Luckily, we do indeed manage to win the game here. We special summon out Gilla, tribute that off for a turtle. And we have to activate last spell first, but like we would have done that if we were doing this. So that is a W there. So yeah, good stuff. I mean, even if we had activated the last spell after, we get serial spell for it. So that should get us out the double cards there. So yeah, so 3 wins, 3 losses so far. Pretty 50-50, and that's generally not a record that you actually want to have going into a tournament. And this hand is not good. I mean, I guess we can. I think I honestly just want to get 5 new ones. I don't really want to keep any of these, so I'm just going to pitch 5 of them there. Get the Demok Engrave. If we draw pre-mat, that can be okay, I guess. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. Well, it all really depends on what I hit off reasoning here. So we're gonna go for reasoning. We're gonna get Millen. We hit a Gilla. Now, if that missed, then we lose the game. If it hits, though, we get to special summon it out in attack. And then what we can do is, well, this is a bit awkward. We can't quite pull off any of our combos here. Because if we want to go for the will plus serial spell thing, oh no, we can. So what we do is we set meta or set walk, it doesn't matter. We go for will, we go for serial spell. Oh, actually, we can't set walk because that's a quick play, so we can't use the term we set it. But we go for will, we go for serial spell there. And then we go for meta, bringing out Dragonus the Wicked Knight. This is why Dragonus is in the fusion deck. I mean, you could proxy it in if you don't have it there. But yeah, and then off the double will, we get to go for a scientist and we get to go for a turtle. So that will be another W there. So interesting stuff by the skin of our teeth, really, in that one. But occasionally you have to go for the reloads and card deeds and stuff like that. We're going to draw here, and this hand is awful. This hand is really bad. We're just going to reload it away. We could keep a gate on field. We could do that, but I figure, again, there's so many ways to trigger will in this deck. Gate is a little bit more, it can extend you further. So maybe it's worth keeping, but I'd rather just draw the 5th card here, I think. Okay, that is a really good hand. We got reasoning plus pre-bat, so we can just go for that reasoning. We hit a turtle. This is sort of, again, Schrodinger's turtle engrave there. Is it engrave? Is it on field? We don't quite know. Let's just banish it to keep track of that. We're going to activate a Pot of Greed here to draw 2 more. And we draw gate. So, yeah, this should be pretty good for us. We go for gate here. Tribute off that. And, yeah, worst case scenario, we've got the re-ink to get back our pot and draw more, but we obviously don't want to do that. We had Gilla. That's not good. That is not what we wanted to hit there. I think we might have to go for repro, pitching, pre-mat, and walk. I don't think there's any set of 5 that, that painful choice will get us the victory for. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the pot, go for pot, draw 2, and yeah, that's not quite it. I mean, we can go for gate. If we had the other turtle on field, going for gate might be the answer. Otherwise, we got reload here. But yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's tricky. There aren't really many things that we'd hit off gate that would do it. But if we hit Demok, I guess that's good enough. So, or maybe not good enough, but it's something at least. We hit Scientist. So if the turtle had been on field, we would have actually won the game here. So that is something good to know about. But I think very likely this would probably be a loss. So I'm going to call it a loss / a win. Because again, if you're playing this deck in a tournament and your opponents know like what you've on, they've heard it through the grapevine, they've seen your replays, then they're probably going to call 5 off the reasoning activation. So turtle is very likely to get hit there, and so yeah, it's most likely a loss in this case. But if they for some reason didn't call 5, then that would have been a W there. So good to know. This is a great hand here. We're gonna go for reasoning. We should likely have a way to win. Turtle again. This is sort of the Schrodinger's turtle there. And what we could do. So if we hit turtle, if it actually managed to make it field, what we could do here is we could activate last will, use turtle's effect, tribute it off, get out of science, pre-mat back the turtle, and that would win us the game that way. So, if they didn't call 5, then we'd win. So let's assume it's engraved and see if we can pull off the FTK from there. I think no matter what, well, I could spell repro back for painful. But what am I doing with that? I don't think that actually does enough. So, I think actually, no, here's the line. What I do is I go for pre-mat. I bring back the turtle. I go for last will here. I go for repro to bring back that last will, use it again. I could also structure this a bit. Well, no, I have to do it this way or else I drop down 6,400. I was going to say that we could repro back the pre-mat, but that doesn't quite work. So we go for another activation of last will. So that's 2 activation of last will. We tribute off the turtle, and then we get double last will to bring out a scientist and a turtle. So it's going to be a W for the deck there. We've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So one more left. And let's see what the final record is after 10. This is, oh man, this hand is awful. That is a terrible hand. Triple last will. Normally it's, something you'd want to see multiple last wills, but this hand has no way to trigger it. So that's going to be definitely another W. So, of these games, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hard losses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hard wins, and a game that was very likely a loss, but could have also been a win. So if you look at it charitably, based on these 10 games, the deck win rate is 60%. Generally, that's not good enough to get you winning a tournament. I will say that, like, in general, you want to do more testing. Like, you can't just decide on the win rate of the deck after 10 games. You'd want to do something like 100 games. But I will say that after testing this deck a lot, like, I've done a lot of solo test stands here to try and, learn the deck and figure out how it works, and also get an idea of how well it does. I will say that the deck win rate is probably between, like, 60 and 80%. I think it's probably, like, in the 70s range, maybe. If you're being charitable, like I haven't done the like hard numbers on it, but like just from, testing a lot of games, seeing the win rate, in those games, again, not close to 100, probably closer to around 50. That's where the win rate was around. So, I would say that this deck is, it's interesting. You can cheese a win with it, but like that sort of win rate you don't want in a tournament setting because, 50% of the time you probably are going to be going second, going first. So like the deck almost always hard loses going second if your opponent has any interaction. So, you've sort of already lost that game if you do go second 50% of the time. And then like slightly over 50% of the time you're going first, you're winning. So like, is that worth it? Because then you get to go first again if you missed the first time, but like it's just kind of awkward. Like generally this sort of deck with that sort of win rate, it's not enough to get it to a tournament success there. But, still good to know about this deck being in the format. And there also are other degenerate decks in the format as well. So let's go over another one now. Okay, we got another degenerate deck here, Empty Jar, and this definitely isn't necessarily the best version of the deck. I mean, Scientist wasn't quite either, although I am, like, pretty confident in that Scientist build. Like, I think it's better than most Scientist builds out there. Here, I think there's a lot of room for experimentation and growth, because I'm not the best Empty Jar player in the world. I've played the deck a little bit, but, like, I'm definitely not as good at this deck as I am at, like, the Gate Reasoning decks. So, this one definitely could be completely misbuilt. However, I do think that this deck is still pretty decent for what it is. So this is Empty Jar. It is using a very interesting feature of this format, Makyura the Destructor here. This card is legal at 3 copies in this format for some reason. And it does not have the errata that you see it has here. It doesn't need to be sent from the Monster Zone to the graveyard. It's just if it's sent from anywhere to the graveyard, then you can activate any number of traps from your hand that turn. So we have Makyura in the deck because there are traps that we'd want to activate, things like Reckless Greed, things like Call the Haunted to bring back our jars, and things like Desert Sunlight to act as multiple Books of Taiyu. Desert Sunlight is also just good to have in the deck in general because if your opponent's on Nobleman of Crossout, you want the Desert Sunlight to flip up your jars and prevent them from getting banished. So I do think it's just good to have in general. Going through the more specific card by card, and also if you don't know what Empty Jar is, basically what it's trying to do is trying to use the effects of Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar to just keep drawing you cards and drawing your opponent cards, and then in the end getting your opponent with a huge hand and going for a card destruction plus a serial spell to deck them out. So that's the general goal of the deck. And this deck is sort of missing some things that the GOAT format version of the deck has. No Feather of the Phoenix, no Sangan, so you can't search out your jars that way, which might make the triple Mystic Tomatoes here seem a bit weird. The reason we've got the triple Mystic Tomatoes anyways is because occasionally you do wind up in situations where, let's say you're going second, your opponent has a monster, face up an attack. You could summon a tomato, crash into that monster, bring out a Cyber Jar, and then book that down. You can also do that during your opponent's turn. If they attack over your tomato, you bring out a Cyber Jar, and then you can book it down and get its effect. So I do think Tomato still has place in this deck, but you definitely cut this for something else, maybe like a Thunder Dragon or something. I do think that this makes it a little bit more resilient, like if you're going second, and also, you know, if you don't draw your combo, you've at least got a way to get out a jar. So I do like Tomato in this deck, although there is triple DD War Lady running around, so maybe this isn't the best thing to include. But that's going to do it for the monsters here. For the spells, we've got Triple Book of Moon, Triple Book of Taiyu. These are very important for your combo. You can book down your monsters, book of Taiyu them back up, and just keep that draw engine going. We get card destruction, that's our finisher, but you can also use it as an extender partway through the combo. You do need to bring back off spell reproduction in that case, but that's good to keep in mind. We got triple drag down in the grave. This card's a bit of an interesting choice here. I have it here because, you know, it is a way to trigger Makyura. It's one of the few ways to trigger Makyura, and that can be very valuable. Also, if you're like setting down everything, then you can use this to draw deeper in your deck. Also, you need to have a monster in your opponent's grave to use Shallow Grave, which is a very important part of your combo. So drag down is a way to get a monster into your opponent's grave. We've also got Triple Giant Trinade here. This can be good if your opponent set cards on their turn. You can go for Trinade, send them back to hand. Also beefs up their hand a bit for your card destruction play, so that can be nice as well. We got Painful Choice here. This card is crazy in this deck. This is a major improvement that the deck actually has over GOAT format. If you can Painful, you can like set up your jars in grave for Shallow Grave stuff. You can get spells in grave that you'd want to get back off reproduction. There's so many good uses for Painful, and this card is crazy whenever you open it. You've also got Pot of Greed here to draw 2. We got Premature Burial to bring back monsters from grave to then set down with book, etc., etc. We got double Rhoda to search out our Makyuras. We've got 2 Rhoda, 1 Makyura. That may seem like an awkward ratio. But I don't really like playing 1-1 because oftentimes you just will get the Makyura out of deck anyways. But you want the Rhoda here to deck then. And also, it is a spell to pitch off repro, so that's good to know as well. Triple Reload here, just like with Science FTK, this is useful for resetting your hands. So your spell at 1 here to pair with your card destruction. Normally, since you're trying to go for big combos, you don't necessarily want to play multiples of this. You're just trying to save it for the last combo of the game. We got double repro. This is very important for the deck. And a Shallow Grave here to get back your monsters. We've also got Upstart here because you don't care about giving your opponent life points because you're not killing them through life points. You're killing them through deck out. For the traps, we get Call the Haunted to bring back our monsters. If you send Makyura, you can then use Call as basically another form of pre-mat. So it's good in that regard. We've also got a triple Desert Sunlight to act as more Book of Taiyus in case we send the Makyura. And also just, if we can't pull off the combo turn 1, this sort of gives insulation against knock. We've also got Reckless Greed here to draw 2 if we've done Makyura. So there's basically another Pot of Greed if we've sent Makyura, which is very good. For the side deck, I'm not really sure what to include in the side deck here. This deck can't really do a full conversion side as well as something like, Science FTK can. So I've just got a bunch of things to help us, like, sort of keep our combo maybe online. I've got Triple Decree, Triple Solemn, in case your opponent sides in like hard outs to it. Decree stops like Disruption, like FTK Break and stuff like that. Solemn can just stop anything. We got Triple Dust Tornado as well if our opponent's on more of a back row focus deck. MST Heavy as well. I do think that bringing in the Heavy can be good occasionally. I forget what I brought in the Heavy for. I think I brought in Heavy for Call a lot of the time, but that might not be the best choice in the future if you know you're going second. But I don't think it's the worst choice either because Call is kind of an awkward card in this deck, even if you do pull off Makyura. So I'm not too sure about Call. But anyways, we got Change of Heart as well to take control of our opponent's monsters and Triple Thunder Dragon. So if we want to go for that package, we can do that as well. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. We do have a fusion deck here. Will likely never come up, but it is there if we want it. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown, as I said. Let's dive into some games. Okay, we got a game here against Dump Truck. Again, a frequent guest on the channel. I'll pleasure to have them on. We will indeed lose the Rock, Paper, Scissors, which is a bit unfortunate. So our opponent is going to be able to go first here. And we draw a... we got Painful Choice plus Shallow Grave, so that's always really good, but we don't have like a Book of Taiyu or something. And if we go for Painful Choice and Shallow Grave, we don't necessarily have enough spells to go for repro. So it's a bit awkward in that regard. Opponent's going to go for a Painful of their own. We're just going to give them the Demock because, we don't really care about the Serpent. We don't want them to like revive that from grave. So I'm fine just giving it. They're just going to set 4, go for Mirage, pass back to us. That's very unfortunate here. They will go for the Mirage, drawing 3 there. And we're going to think, because we could go for Painful into Shallow Grave now that we've got the Repro to get back things from Grave. So that might be the move, and we are indeed just going to go for it. We're going to send Makyura, Cyber Jar, Book of Tayu, Reinforcement of the Army, and Reinforcement of the Army. These Rotas are both dead now that the Makyura is out of deck. But we figured they're probably going to give us the Makyura anyways. So we don't go for the full setup here. We just sort of try and deck them a little bit, and also get the Jar and Grave for our Shallow Grave there. So we're going to Shallow Grave, bring back that Cyber Jar. I could have also gone for Morphing Jar instead of Cyber Jar here, because that would get Makyura in Grave. We also have it normal summoned. So realistically, what I should do here is I should summon out Makyura after going for the Cyber Jar, and then I should Tayu. So I unfortunately do not do that, and this is a major misplay on my part. I mean, I guess playing around Torrential a little bit, but like they are just going to go for Raigeki Break on the Cyber Jar when we target it. So unfortunately, we won't quite get to pull that off, but we can bring out this Makyura, attack over their sets, get it off field, and it's a Dekoichi, so they're going to draw 1. So quite unfortunate. It wouldn't have mattered either way there if we had summoned Makyura before going for the Cyber Jar or after, but either way, not the best situation for us. We're down to 1 card in hand, which is not good. Also, Tomato has now lost its main target because Cyber Jar is in Grave. I'm just going to flip up this DD War Lady, summon out Chaos Rook, so it's not looking good for us at all. They're going to attack over our Makyura. We'll take 7 from that, and then we'll take 3,000 from those DD War Ladies there. So this is looking pretty rough. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Repro, which is going to be useless here. And they've almost got game on board, so it's very likely we're just going to lose here. We're going to set the Tomato, set a Spell Repro. We're going to pitch 3 from their hand. But yeah, it's not looking good. They're just going to attack over our set with the Warrior Lady. It is the Tomato there, so we'll just get that banished. They're going to attack in for 3,800 as well. And yeah, it's not looking good for us at all. They're just going to pass back to us. We draw Reckless, which will not help us here. So yeah, we're just going to set the Reckless, pass back to them, but this is the end of the game. Nothing we can really do here. This does get us a bit more information on what they're playing though, so that's why we sort of wait till this. They go for pot, they just attack in for 38, and yeah, that's going to be the end of game 1. So quite unfortunate there, we weren't able to win that game. The break did stop us, which, you know, again, with these FTK decks, if your opponent has any form of disruption after they, go, then you're in for a tough time. But, if we had gone first there, I think we would have been in a different situation, because we would have actually been able to pull off our Jar Tayu combo. And generally, if you could do that, you're in a winning spot. But, it doesn't always work out that way. Okay, we're going to dive into game 2 here. And we are going first, so we could potentially pull off the FTK here. This isn't the worst thing in the world, honestly. We got Painful. We could have also saved the Painful for after we'd gone for our Rota plus Drag Down play here. That would have been another option. But instead, I'm just going to get the Drag Down to hand with the Painful. So I'm going to send a Makyura, triple Tomato, and a Rota here. Just to deck in a little bit. We don't want to draw into those tomatoes, so I think that makes a lot of sense. We're going to add that Makyura to hand. Go for reload, shuffle everything back. I get why I'm doing this. Going all in like that on the drag down Makyura is a bit awkward. We draw 5. Unfortunately, we don't quite have a way to do things here. We could go Spell Repro, get back Painful, do it again, but like I don't really feel the need to do that, so I'm just going to pass back to our opponent. The nice thing about this deck is you don't need your life points to be at a certain level, so you do have time, especially with this Trunade here. We can Trunade back whatever they have set, and then just go for our full plays later. So yeah, we draw pre-mat. Not really going to do the best here, but we can just pass back to our opponent. They're going to go for the Warrior Lady again, attack in for another 15. And then they're just going to set another pass back to us. We draw another Book of Moon, which is not really the best here. But we've got 7 cards in hand, so we got to do something here. We're going to do a big think. And we are just going to Trunade back everything. Send those 3 cards back to hand there. Go for Repro, pitch a Repro and a Book of Moon to get back that Painful choice. And now we can potentially get things going. We go for Painful here. We send a Rota, a Makyura, a Cyber Jar, a Morphing Jar, and a Trunade. They're going to give us the Makyura here, which makes sense. That is what we'd normally do, or what they should do there. We go for pre-mat on the Cyber Jar. We book it down, and now we actually make a major misplay here. What I should do is summon out Makyura and then go for Book of Tayu, because then Makyura is sent from field to grave, and then our traps are online. I don't do that. That's just a major misplay on my part. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out for us. If Makyura was online, then we'd have access to Desert Sunlight and Reckless Greed, so that's quite unfortunate. Luckily, our opponent does also misplay here, so it ultimately worked out for the best for us. So we get back all these cards in hand. If our opponent had just set all the monsters that they hit off the jar, then we wouldn't have any way to send Makyura, and then we would have just lost the game. But instead, they bring up Breaker in attack, and that actually will allow us to crash Makyura into the Breaker and then get our traps online. So realistically, we wouldn't have had to do this because we should have just summoned up Makyura first. But since both of our misplays kind of canceled out, it worked out in the end. We go for Reckless here, draw 2, go for Shallow Grave, get back that Saboteur there. They get back to Koichi won't matter because we go for a Desert Sunlight here to pop the Cyber Jar, pop the entire field, get 5 cards to hand. They, get out more cards. Looks like they're on return from the different dimension. Very cool deck. Unfortunately, they won't really have a chance to use it against us because we should have everything that we actually need here now that we've, got our engine online. So we've got Shallow plus Desert Sunlight plus, we've got Card Destruction plus Hero Spell as well. So if we go Card Destruction, Hero Spell now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Won't quite do it, so we need to pump up their hand a little bit more. We go for Shallow Grave here to bring back that Cyber Jar. Go for Desert Sunlight to pop the entire field. And, that will go through. So they will destroy their entire field. Banish 5 or draw 5, that is. And, yeah, we could go for, like, call plus book plus whatever, but this is just the end of the game. If we go for Card Destruction plus Serial Spell, the nice thing about Serial Spell is it discards for cost. So if we do use Card Destruction on it, then we won't have a hand to actually discard off Card Destruction, so we don't have to worry about how many cards are in our deck when going for this combo. And that is a major load off my mind. So I go for Card Destruction plus Serial Spell, pitching everything. Our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So they'll draw 15 off this, and then they'll draw another 15. So that will just be the end of the game there. So that is going to be the end of the game. And we're going to go into game 3. So hopefully we will be able to pull it off, even though we are going second. We do add in the heavy over the call. Because, if they've got a field set up, I want more spell and trap removal. They're going to set 3, pass back to us. We draw Reproduction here. We go for Pot of Greed, draw a Cyber Jar and a Shallow Grave. This should potentially be the end of the game soon. We could also just set the Cyber Jar, set Desert Sunlight, and pass. But I'm a little bit worried about, Raigeki Break popping the jar or Knock popping the jar. But I guess they can't knock on our turn, so I wouldn't really have to worry about that. Anyways, I'm going to add back this Pot, go for Pot. Draw 2. We draw Drag Down Shallow. I'm going to go for setting the jar, going for the reload here. I guess I don't have a way to flip up the jar, but I guess what I could have done is set Shallow, gone for Drag Down, pitching Desert Sunlight, and then maybe drawn into a way, but I think this is fine. So I draw 4, bring out Upstart, Book of Tayu, and Shallow Grave. I go for Upstart here just to draw deeper into our deck. We draw Spell Repro. We're going to flip up the Book of Tayu, popping the field. And that will go through. So I have to read that they don't have a Raigeki Break in the back row, which is a major load off my shoulders. Means that our plays should be relatively insulated here. And I might not even need the heavy. Because there's no way that you wouldn't Raigeki Break the set monster when your opponent activates Book of Tayu in this deck. So because of that, I feel like I can not fire the heavy here, which is actually very important. Because I need to actually repro back the Book of Tayu to get that online. And for repro, I need to use Shallow Grave to get back the Cyber Jar. And all I've got left are Book of Moon, Serial Spell, and Heavy Storm. I don't want to pitch Serial Spell because I've already gone through 1 spell reproduction. I only have 1 more left in deck. And so there are situations where I won't necessarily have the resources to get back that Serial Spell with the reproduction. So what I actually decided to do here, after a lot of thinking, is I go for repro, pitching the heavy in the book to keep the Serial Spell in hand. And this actually does end up costing me the game here because I go for Shallow Grave and my opponent does go for a TT on that. TT is basically the 1 card here that they could have had in the back row that they wouldn't have used to stop the Cyber Jar Book of Tayu activation. That does just kill us here. Or not kill us, but shuts us off from our combo. So unfortunately, that will indeed go through because this was indeed a summon. Shallow Grave says special summon, in face down defense position. So that will indeed go through. and we do lose the game here. If we'd pitched the Serious Spell off the repro, then we could have potentially had some gas later on. Or at least, we would have been able to heavy the board, get rid of that TT, and I guess a ring didn't really do anything here against us, because we always, like, if we are bringing back something off, like, pre-mat or call, we can Book of Moon it down, because we probably have that in hand already. But either way, if we'd gone for heavy, it would have potentially allowed us to extend further, but I think, like, that's maybe a bit too much hindsight. The only thing that would stop us in the back row here, if we'd not gone for heavy, which we didn't here, was TT. Everything else they would have used on the set jar. So I figured that it was a safe enough call to do that, because again, we might not have had the resources to bring back that Serial Spell and set up our combo at the end of the game. Now, that being said, if we're using Cyber Jar enough, we might not even need the Serial Spell at the end of the game for card destruction. But, I think it was just the sort of safer option maybe, but I don't know. There's a lot of ways you could definitely play this turn. I definitely think that the way that we played it was definitely a justifiable way to do so, but it unfortunately did not work out for us there. So they're going to go for Painful, send 5 here, and then they're going to add the Upstart to hand. So Upstart will be able to draw them a card. I gave them Upstart because I was more afraid of Coffee or Forceful ripping a card out of our hand, or them ripping our combo pieces out of hand, or solving just something here. That'd be very annoying for us. They go for Upstart, drawing a card. Then they go for Royally Attack in for 15, dropping us down to 75. We still got a couple turns left. They're going to set 2 pass back to us, or set 3 pass back to us, that is, sorry. We go for Reckless Greed here to draw 2 more in case we draw into a Trinade. Unfortunately, we do not. So we're just going to do here, we're going to go for Shallow Grave, get back those 2 cards there. Now we're going to go for a Tayu. They've got Solemn for that, so they will drop down to 45. We go for this reload here, shuffling back the deck, drawing 3. And we draw Card Destruction and Serial Spell, neither of which we can pitch off Drag Down. So that is quite unfortunate here. We might just have to pitch them anyways, but yeah, I guess we just do pitch it anyways. We go for Drag Down here, pitching a Serial Spell to draw 1 more. We could have also just gone for Card D here instead, but I wanted to rip out something good from their hand. They did have Demox, so I'm very glad I did that. We just draw a book, so that's not really going to help us here. We go for Card D there. And I think at this point I'm just sort of desperate because I'm not really winning this game any way that I picture it. I'm going to set the Tomato pass back to our opponent. They go for Knock on our set, and yep, that will be the case. I went for Drag Down and Card Destruction because I knew about the Knock, so I had to try and hit that, but unfortunately they did have the Knock for the Jar, so that will likely be the end of the game. They've got 16 cards left in deck, so there are potentially ways that I could recover from this, but realistically, after they go for pre-mat on the Demock to get back the other Knock, it's not really going to work out well for me, so this is 3K plus 2,800, 5,800. So not quite the end of the game, but it's good enough. Yeah, and they've got Ring. So yeah, that will be the end of the game there. So again, if I'd gone for heavy, maybe I could have won this game. But I do think it was justifiable to not go for heavy. And that is sort of the decision that you have to make when playing this deck. Occasionally you will sort of meet a fork in the road and you've got to decide which direction to take. And if you take the wrong one, you can easily lose. This deck is very punishing. But it is very good. I think, the fact that we almost won this game shows how good it can be. And also it shows that this deck is a little bit more resilient than the Science FTK, I think. If you're playing one of these degenerate decks, even though this deck I think has a lower FTK rate, this deck is more likely to win after failing to FTK. Because, it doesn't necessarily need to be at a certain amount of life points to win. So you can take a couple turns setting up your combos. And it is playing like Trinades and stuff in the main. So that can send back your opponent's interaction. So I do overall like this deck a little bit better than Science 50K. But that's just a personal taste in my opinion. But anyways, just like we did the Science 50K deck, let's do some test hands here to see what the FTK rate actually is on this deck. Okay, we're diving into the test hands. And we've already got a really good one here. Oh man, plus Painful? Oh boy. Okay. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for Painful right away. What I'm going to send off the Painful is I'm just going to send a triple Tomato. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to send Makyura, which will go to hand, and I'm going to send a Cyber Jar. I don't necessarily want to draw any of these monsters, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the Jar. If they don't give us Makyura, then that's kind of wild. Because that our traps are online. So most of the time people are going to give me Makyura. If they give us Cyber Jar here, we set the Cyber Jar instead of the Jar. The Morphing Jar, we've got Reckless Greed to draw 2 more. We've got a lot of options here. If they give us Tomato, we still probably go for Reckless Greed right away to draw 2 more just to see what we get. And then we can sort of construct our combo from there. But, they're going to give us Makyura. That is the thing that they will do. Like, most of the time with Painful, you've got to consider, okay, what if they give us this? What if they give us this? Makyura is just the best option for them to give us here. If they don't do it, we're still fine because we got Reckless in hand, so we can go for that. But either way, I think this is correct. So we're just going to set the jar. We're going to set everything. We could have also sent spells off painful. But I figure since we've got the Tayu already online for our morphing jar, it's just better to draw deeper into our deck and get our traps online. So we're going to send the Makyura there, draw 5. Our opponent will also pitch 5. And this is a really good hand here. We got Book of Moons to set down the morphing jar. We're just going to go for pot right now. We also have Call the Haunted, which we can use from hand to set down a Cyber Jar here, which might be the move. What we could do is we could do, yeah, I kind of like that play. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to activate Call the Haunted, bring back the Cyber Jar, because the Cyber Jar is generally better for this deck than Morphing Jar. So we're going to go book, set down the Cyber Jar. We're going to go for Spell Repro, pitching Rhoda and Drag Down, neither of which are really the best right now. And getting back the Book of Tayu here. And then we can Book of Tayu up the Cyber Jar, pop everything. So everything's gone. We banish 5. There are no monsters in our deck, so we can just draw this 5. So yeah, this is busted when you get this combo online. And now we've got True Nade, so we can get back the Call of the Haunted, get back our Reckless Greed as well. And this is just going to be the, like, this is the end of the game in many, many ways. So, I mean, I might as well just go for the Reckless Greed now, draw 2. Those cards are not really the best for us, but they're more spell reproduction fodder. We don't even need Spell Reaper right now. We can go for Call the Haunted, bring back the Cyber Jar, go for Book of Moon on the Cyber Jar, go for Spell Reproduction, pitching, I guess, Rhoda and Drag Down again, to get back the Tayu, flip, or actually, we don't even need that. We could just go Desert Sunlight. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll keep these in hand for later. But yeah, Desert Sunlight is another Tayu. I forgot about that. So that will draw us 5 more off this Cyber Jar. 3, 4, 5. We draw another Book of Tayu here, so we can just go for, and at this point, our opponent probably has Monster Engrave off the opening hand. If they don't, then again, we can go for Call, True Nade, the Call, plus Book, etc. But we're assuming that they've got a monster, because it's very likely if they don't. Actually, let's assume they don't. If they don't, I mean, we would have probably gone for Drag Down plays later. We also probably would have gone for a Morphing Jar play again, as opposed for immediately going for the Jar. So, but either way, I think it should be fine, because what we do is we True Nade back the Call, get that to hand. We go for Call, bring back the Cyber Jar, go for Book of Moon, go for Desert Sunlight. You generally want to use Desert Sunlight over the Book of Tayus, because Book of Tayus are spell reproduction fodder in a worst case scenario. We go for 5 here. They've definitely gotten, like, they've definitely got a monster too, because Cyber Jar is summoning out monsters on their side of the field and then popping them whenever this goes off. But either way, we've got Card Destruction plus Hero Spell. They likely are not going to, they probably have enough cards in hand here to actually make this combo live. So we should be able to win the game from this position, and that is a major W on our part. So yeah, this deck is crazy when it goes off like that. Just super powerful. If you can get your draw engine online, you're probably winning the game. However, getting that draw engine online is a bit tricky a lot of the time. So that's a W to start with. This hand is really good. This hand is a little bit awkward, because we basically need to draw into a way of triggering our. Actually, we want to keep this in hand. A way of triggering our jar. But we're going to go for Drag Down here, pitch Book of Moon. It's kind of awkward. I think Desert Sunlight is a little bit more valuable if we don't draw something good off the Drag Down. Then this way we at least get Desert Sunlight on the following turn, in case they try and banish our Cyber Jar. If they don't, then Desert Sunlight's just a Book of Tayu later. But we're going to draw. We draw True Nade. That's not going to really do it here. So that's going to be... I'm going to mark FTK rate. So, this is going to be an L for the FTK rate. But I think this is a really good setup just in general, right? We've got Desert Sunlight plus Cyber Jar. So if they just attack into the Cyber Jar and trigger things that way, we're still probably in a good spot. We got Shallow Grave to bring back the Cyber Jar next turn, plus Desert Sunlight. We could even True Nade our hand back just to protect our Premat and Shallow Grave, if we really want to, and then just set our Desert Sunlight as our 1 card. But I think that's, Heavy's at 1, so you're not the most likely to encounter it. Either way, I think this is a pretty good setup. So, L, but probably maybe even a W over the course of that game. This is an okay hand. We're going to go for Upstart here, draw a card. Not necessarily what we want to see, but we can just set Reckless, pass back to our opponent. Next turn, you know, let's say we draw like for turn and then we go for reckless as well. So we get drag down here. Drag down a bit awkward. I think what I want to do is I want to set Tayu, shallow. I mean, if I crash in with, like, if they've got a monster crashing with tomato, I do that, and then I book a moon it down, I book Tayu it up, etc. But otherwise, probably want to set these. I don't know. Trunade's kind of good to set, but at the same time, not really. I guess I'll set a not send to grave. I guess I'll set a book. It's just awkward. Sometimes you wind up in these awkward drag down spots. So let's say they send, I don't know, the Trunade, and we draw a card here. It's reload, so then we reload back into our deck and put these back on top. Shuffle up, draw 2, and yeah, that unfortunately is not quite it. But, you know, if they hadn't gone aggressive there, we probably wouldn't have needed to use the reckless, and if they had gone aggressive, we could have crashed the tomato, gotten out Jar, etc., etc., and also traded back their stuff to prevent them from any interaction with that. So either way, I think this was a pretty good game. That's going to be an L, though, for the FTK stuff. But either way, I hope you're seeing, like, even though we're losing these games, we're still in a good spot overall. So I do think that this deck is pretty good. I mean, this is really good. I mean, we're going to go for Rhoda here first, just to get that Makyura out of deck. 2 fuel plays later on. Add that to hand. I could even, you know, I do have repro here, so I can get back the card D. I could even just go for the card destruction pitching Makyura right away. I don't know how good that is. But once I start the Cyber Jar draw engine, then I probably won't have a good opportunity to pitch it. So I'm just going to go for it now. I'm just going to YOLO it. This is a bit greedy on my part. But I think that ultimately it might pay off. So we're going to go for card destruction here, pitching the reload and the Makyura. Drawing 2. Oh! The greed paid off. Do I activate Reckless now? I think I can just flip up the Tayu first. Yeah, I'll just flip up the Tayu first. Why not? Popping that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah. We draw 5 good ones. And we also draw Painful. That's really good here. We do need a way to get Tayu online. But I think that, you know, we have multiple ways to do that. We're going to go for Painful here. What are we going to send from deck to grave? Let's just send our bricks. We're going to send Tomato, Jar, and Tomato, and then one more. Rhoda's dead, so let's send that as well. If they give us Rhoda, we got Spell Reproduction, Fuel. The worst thing for us, honestly, is if they give us Morphing Jar, because then we don't really have a good way to access that. But we don't really need a good way to access that because we got Shallow for Cyber Jar here. They very likely have a card in Grave for Shallow Grave because Cyber Jar activated, because, you know, we card destruction them. So if not, I mean, we can go for Reckless here first, draw 2, and that doesn't really help us get a monster in their graveyard, but we could go for, like, Spell Repro, getting back card D, and then getting a monster engraved that way, and going for lines like that. A bit awkward because, again, we've only got 3 Spell Repro. We need that card D online as well. So, but still, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. But anyways, we are going to Shallow Grave here, get back that Cyber Jar, face down defense, then go for a Book of Tayu here, flip that up, pop it, banish 5, but, you know, realistically, we don't have any monsters left in deck, so we go for this. And I mean, we got Shallow again, so we're going to go for that. We got Desert Sunlight as well to flip that up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, we've got access to the card destruction online through our spell repros at any point. We got Serious Spell, so this is going to be a W. I'm going to call it a W. Again, you know, if they hadn't had a monster in grave, like their hand was just no monsters in the opener, then we did have ways to sort of get that online. We have Spell Reaper to get back spells from grave to set that up, but I think it's most likely that they had a monster there. So I'm going to call it a W. This hand is interesting. I'm going to go for pot, draw 2, hope it fixes it a little bit. Doesn't quite fix it. We could go for Spell Repro on the pot if we were being greedy and, like, just trying to pull off the FTK here. That's what we do. So I'm just going to do it. You know, like, Spell Repro on pot. 1, 2. We got Painful. That is pretty interesting. Didn't quite do what we want here, though. I mean, we'd activate it, and then what would we send? We don't have anything for spell repro here, unless we spend all spells. We could just try and get Makyura engraved, so like, but like, you know, realistically, they're gonna give us the Makyura. We could go Makyura, Rhoda, or, oh, we could go, okay. So here's something we could do. We could go Makyura, and then, no, we don't have a way to get out Makyura no matter what, so. Yeah, I'm just going to call this one an L. I don't think there's a set of 5 that can actually do it here. Let me know in the comments below if you can figure out a set of 5 that do it, but I'm going to call that an L. And this is kind of awkward because I feel like this is not like as good of a winning position as the other L's that we've had so far. So, good to keep in mind that occasionally the deck can just hard brick and you're not going to be able to win through that. But when it does go off, it can be pretty good. So this hand here is just a set everything and then drag down hand. That occasionally does happen. It's always unfortunate when it does happen. But it is what it is. We're going to pitch that tomato. Add spell reproduction to hand. Doesn't help us here. I guess we could like true nade back everything. And then go for like, and this is really bad. We could go for spell repro on the drag down. Get back drag down, pitch the call, and then draw another card here, but realistically, you'd never do that. It's just shallow grave. So yeah, that was not the right move there, but that's going to be an L for the deck there. You know, again, like, it's not the worst thing in the world if this deck doesn't FTK first turn. And, you know, we still had Tomato to go into Jar, into other stuff, but yeah, it's a bit awkward there. This hand is pretty okay. We're going to Rhoda for Makyura. And then I think, honestly, we just go for card destruction here. We could also set Trinade Desert Sunlight to have a Book of Tayu online. That might be the move, but I think just drawing 5 is a bit better. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And, you know, there definitely could be different lines here. If we had just drawn 3, then yeah, that wouldn't have done much. Drawing 5 also does not do too much, honestly, if I'm being honest here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set you, and then go for drag down here, pitching the tomato to draw a card, drawing to reload. Not going to do anything for us here. So yeah, that's going to be another L, unfortunately. If we had drawn it differently off the card D, we could have potentially had more gas, but that's like saying if we had drawn a different hand, then we could have had more gas. So kind of pointless to say that sort of thing. This hand is this hand actually good? This hand, no, it's not quite good. I think like we could do some funny shenanigans with like serial spell to pitch the Makyura, but unfortunately it doesn't quite work out for us because the only spell we'd have to use is reproduction, which would pitch serial spell for cost, so wouldn't quite work out there. But as is, we got like tomato reckless, so we can go for that, and then let's say we like drew 3 total off the reckless. Ooh, that's kind of awkward. We got reload to send everything back, so I mean, let's see what that does. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Shuffle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And yeah, it's not really the best there. So yeah, that is going to be another L. Oof, this deck is taking L's left and right. And as I said, this deck's FTK rate is not really the highest thing in the world. Oftentimes, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your combo over the course of a couple turns. But, you know, the fact that it can FTK, I think, is good to mention. But anyways, we're going to go for reload here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, not banish. Top of the deck. 3, 4, 5. Shuffle that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we draw painful, which is crazy here. So we're going to go for painful. I don't actually know what to send. We could. So if I want to get my combos online, I could send like Jar. If they give us Jar, then we also want to send the Tayu for that purpose. So we'll send Jar Tayu. If they give us Tayu, we want a way to get back Jar, so we could send. Well, Shallow Grave doesn't do anything because they don't have any monsters in Grave. So we'd want to send like Premats. Yeah, we'd want to send Premat. Then what's our remaining? Could send Morphing Jar as well. If that's another jar there. So we got 4 okay ones. Because they give us Premat, Pre-mat back the Jar. We use Spell Repro to pitch 2 cards from hand, or Serial Spell, True Nade, and then we get back Tayu, Book of Moon down the Jar. So these 4 get our engine online, but what's the 5th card that gets our engine online? That I'm not as sure about. Could just go for Pot. I don't hate Pot. Pot could be a way to do it. Yeah, I think there might not be just a solid like card that turns everything online here. We could just send another Tayu as well, but I don't necessarily like getting 2 Tayus out of grave. We could send another book. No, we need the Tayu access. So yeah, okay. I'm just gonna send another Tayu, see what happens. Because these 5, like any of them, get us into our combo here. So let's say they give us pre-mat. Pre-mat's like the most awkward here because we have to put the most into this. So we're gonna go for pre-mat, bring back the Cyber Jar here. And then we're gonna go for booking it down, setting that. We could have also gone for True Nade, add back the pre-mat, but effectively it doesn't really make a difference because either way we're spell reproing away our Serial Spell and our True Nade to get back the Book of Tayu. Actually, I think probably Morphing Jar is a little bit better here because Morphing Jar pitches their hand. And yeah, so this will get us a monster engrave. So yeah, I like that better. So we're going to go for Morphing Jar here. Draw 5, 3, 4, 5. And that's a pretty good hand, not going to lie. We're going to go for Upstart. Draw 2. We draw Call and Spell Repro. I'm going to go for Upstart here. Draw 1. Oh, we drew all our Makyura stuff. We had sent Makyura off Painful, but we couldn't have sent Makyura off Painful because we didn't have the tools to deal with that. So unfortunately, this isn't quite gonna do it. We could have also gone for Spell Repro, pitch like double book or pitch book and Upstart to then get our Book of Moon back, and then gone for Desert Sunlight paired with book to do things there. But I think this is ultimately fine. This can happen if you're playing all these Makyura cards. But yeah, it's gonna be another L there. Still, I think that's a pretty good setup for later. As I mentioned, there are things you can do there. But yeah, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's our last replay with the deck. And this is a really good hand. This is an incredible hand. Wow. We're gonna go for Painful here. What we want to do when we see a hand like this is we want to get Makyura online. So we go for Makyura. We go for triple tomatoes because those are really bad to draw. And then we'll just go for honestly, let's just put a Cyber Jar Grave to fuel our grave shallow grave setups. They're going to give us the Makyura because it's the best thing they can give us here. If they don't, it doesn't really matter because, if they give us a Cyber Jar, it matters a bit because then we can, like, Book of Tayu the Cyber Jar and go for that sort of thing instead. But realistically, what we're doing here is we're setting the Morphing Jar, we're setting Spell Repro, reload, and then we're going for Book of Tayu on the Morphing Jar, flipping that up, pitching the Makyura, pitching our opponent's hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is pretty good, not gonna lie. It's a little bit tricky because what we'd want to do, it's a bit tricky. I think what I want to do is, because I'm going to lose, well, actually, so if I Book of Moon this, right, I set it down, I don't have to lose my Book of Tayus, so, but it's awkward, though. I could also just always go for, okay, I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use it while I got it. I'm going to go for Spell Repro, pitch, reload, drag down, and go for Book of Moon to hand there. Because now what I do is I set 1 Tayu, I activate a Tayu, flip this up, its effect activates, I chain Book of Moon to its effect to flip it down. So this way I still draw 5 cards, 3, 4, 5, and then I've still got Book of Tayu online for another one. Man, really not drawing any shallow graves here. Oh. I guess I could go for Spell Repro to get, well, no, because then my 3rd Spell Repro is gone. So a bit awkward here. I got Desert Sunlight to flip this back up, so that is good to know. I also have this Tayu here. I also have True Nade to send everything back to hand. Drag down as well. So I've got a couple different options here. What do I want to do exactly? It might be True Nade time. I'm going to go for True Nade. Not to top of deck, to hand. To hand.
2-hand. Going to add all that back to hand. I'm going to set a Book of Tayu, and then I'm actually going to go for a reload here. Because I kind of want the Shallow Grave. I think it's about time to get into my Cyber Jar stuff. So this is 5, I believe. Yeah, I believe this is 5. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's the Shallow Grave, baby. That's what I wanted to see. So we're going to go for Shallow Grave there. Bring back the Cyber Jar. If they don't have a monster in grave, they're on some crazy sort of deck. But we've set their hand, or we've discarded their hand multiple times. So they should be on a monster in grave. We're going to get back that Cyber Jar. And now we've got Tayu there. I think what I'm going to do instead, well, okay. So if I go for Sunlight, Sunlight's actually kind of kooky because I can order this chain how I see fit. So I could have them go for Morphing Jar first, then go for Cyber Jar, which is kind of funny. I like that. I like that plan. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to set everything. Because we're going to get a big hand here. I'm going to activate Desert Sunlight, flip up both the jars together. And I'm going to order it so that Morphing Jar is Chain Link 2, Cyber Jar Chain Link 1. And I think this does work this way. If it doesn't work this way, we could have just gone for Tayu on the jar and we still would have been fine. But so Morphing Jar triggers first. We discard our hands, then both draw 5. And then Cyber Jar triggers, so we draw 5 more, or banish 5 more, or whatever you want. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's exactly the amount we're drawing there. And then we're in a pretty good spot, I think. We've also got Spell Reaper to bring back Shallow Grave to get back our stuff. So that is indeed what we're going to do. We're going to go for Repro here. Pitch a Reinforcing the Army. Pitch a, I don't know, Book of Moon. Get back Shallow Grave. Then we got our Desert Sunlight to turn that online. We also had, Make Your Own in hand. We had Call the Han plus Desert Sunlight plus Book. But either way, this would be fine. We also have this Pot of Greed that I've not activated yet. So let's just activate that now. We draw Shallow Upstart. So actually, we didn't even need the Shallow. So I mean, this is just over. We're just trying to draw into Serial Spell here. So we go for the Shallow Grave. We go for Desert Sunlight, Cyber Jar to get 5 more, and there's the Serial Spell. So that will be the end of the game. W there to end it out. So as you can see here, the FTK rate a lot lower than the Science FTK. This is 3 out of 10, so 30%. And in testing, I found that like the FTK rate is like a bit less than 50%. So Scientist, it's a bit more than 50%. Empty Jar is a bit less. But I do think Empty Jar is more resilient overall. And Empty Jar is much scarier just over the course of a game. I understand that like FTKs are like incredibly scary. But honestly, if I'm facing Science FTK deck or I'm facing this deck, I'm much more scared of the Empty Jar deck because it's just got a lot more ways to pull off its combo later on in the game. I think both the degenerate decks are very powerful. There are also some other FTK decks you can play in the format, like Library FTK is around. It's really bad because you don't have access to Graceful Charity, or a Feather of the Phoenix, or, a lot of powerful cards that you'd use for the deck, but Graceful really ties it all together. And so I tried experimenting with Library FTK to get it to a point where I felt comfortable playing it. I did not reach that point. If you want to experiment with it yourself, then you can definitely do so. But I feel like Library FTK is not the way to go if you want to play one of these degenerate decks. You probably want to play either Empty Jar or Science FTK. Last Turn is also around in the format. I don't really think it's that good either, because it takes a lot of setup. It's very risky, and there are just so many outs to it. So I don't really think it's that good, but you can play it if you want. But that's going to do it for the degenerate decks of Warrior format. I hope that you enjoyed as always. Also, if you enjoy this sort of content, please do subscribe to the channel. I release retro Yu-Gi-Oh videos like this pretty frequently. So if you enjoy it, that's the best way to keep seeing more of it. Also, if you want to play any games in Warrior format or any of the other games that I featured on the channel, then definitely head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server. It's the best place to find games in these formats that I've covered. Yeah, and also that's where I get my games that I play. So if you want to be featured in the videos, that's the best place to do it as well. Also, we hold monthly tournaments and weekly locals as well. So that's fun too. But also, if you want to support me directly, then definitely join my Patreon. Link in the description down below. And if you do, you'll get shout out in these videos. So big shout outs to Rincewind, Porkchop Coon, Bread Donker, GMYFS. It really means a lot to me that you support me this way, and it keeps me letting me make videos like these. But that's going to do it for the video. I hope that you enjoyed it as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.